Hi all and welcome back. That's a blast from the past, native New Yorker. This next piece is all about New York. There's a few pieces in here. The Synagogue of Satan. The elephant in the state. The real powerhouse and, quite frankly, the cesspit of this country. And I don't mean that about the people, but you know what I'm referring to. And no, it's not Washington, D.C. That's the illusion. That place, New York, is named Gotham for a reason. Batman, or real term, Dark Elf, was not a superhero to the people as portrayed in the movies, the comics, and also the shows. Although later ones got nearer the truth with the Dark Knight in particular. Now New York and its plethora of dark occult occupants decided this week to steep to new lows, equating 600 measles cases out of 300 plus million people, of which there are 19.5 million people in New York, to some epidemic of global proportions, and now decides it requires to mandatorily vaccinate all people against measles, to a group of people who already resemble a pincushion. 600 cases requires politicians from all sides, I might add, to get involved, and the usual sponsors of medical death by pharma, the World Health Organization, ramped up by the portal people to a point of mass fear, and sadly too many to this day just accept it. But no one's died. Now this vaccine order, coincidences again, was signed off by a woman called Osiris Bardo. Is it Osiris or is it Osiris? You know how they love their Egyptian symbolism in New York, don't they? Osiris Bardo is another of those, is it a man or is it a woman question to boot. She or it signed off on it. But let's step out of the forest and analyse it. 600 cases of what is a fairly moderate illness that has produced no deaths suddenly turns into a mass panic situation of we're all going to die. Does that make sense? Well, if it does make sense to you, you're past the point of helping. Unable to think for yourself, and welcome to your robot world, where they think for you. If it doesn't make sense, then you should know by now what is playing out. A program. What you may or may not know is, programs are rarely just for one reason. Always look behind the magician's hand. Next piece, talking about New York again. I read an article on a new building that went up there recently, and quite frankly, it looks like a monstrosity. And yet apartments there are costing $32 million in some cases. $32 million. Rented 2-bedroom apartments are $9,000 a month. And it's that type of insanity we the people have to stop. This tactic is multi-pronged. One, it creates elitism as only the few can afford it. Two, it congregates the elites all in one place for other programs. For an example of this, think Sandy Hook and Connecticut. 3. It pushes those who play the game and think they are part of the elite to chip into the program, where they then assess them how far they will go to keep them or discard them out of the group. 4. It takes money off the middle class. 5. It creates a debt bubble which, when it fails, and it always does because they create it, they then buy up these properties for pennies on the dollar. When reality bites to most people is, yes, we wanted that nice shiny apartment in an elite district which gets me more brownie points in my circle, but in the real world we can't afford it. Well, these people, these vipers, rely on peoples like you. Recognise it and don't participate. 6. It keeps all of the real people out and pushes them into the zoo. It's essentially what the inner cities are like. Zoos. All confined. All crushed together. That a zoo that they created, where it becomes survival of the fittest, does it not? All very eugenics, isn't it? Now this program is being rolled out by these goons globally. I warned of it in California 5 years ago. May even be 6 now. $9,000 a month for rent, or a mortgage for that matter, is beyond insane. No wonder they call it seeking asylum when you want to join a country. 9,000 a month could build 1 or 2 tiny houses per month, and you can live rent-free. But in this materialistic world, where it's all about status, fashion, and bigger and more is better, that doesn't fit the illusion world, does it? They have us all competing over external items when we should be comparing how far we've come internally. And we've become shallow, and only we can change that. These so-called elites can't or won't change. But it is we who creates their elitism. And it is we who can remove it also, by leaving their overpriced enclaves empty. As for New York and its people, perhaps the QAnon meme works best. Hashtag walk away. You're going to be forced out either way. Perhaps people should consider building a new wall in this country, not just the southern border, but around Gotham City, New York. Wall them all in so they don't affect the rest of the country with their dark magic. And that shining beam from Ground Zero is only missing the bat emblem. Oops. You don't think they put that beam up just to look nice, did you? Oh no. Everything has a purpose with them. And in the Batman series, the cops are useless. And in came Batman, suited up to fix things. Sound familiar? Except Batman is not who you think it is. It's another outsider, like the Draco, who came in with technology to fix things for you. That never worked too well for us, did it? Batman is the Dark Elf. I've encountered these Dark Elves many times, and I was told by others these were guardians. Well, that never sat too well with me, given what I witnessed, as whenever there were attacks, one of them was always in the scene, often encountered when females were being raped by an entity they couldn't see. Yes, you heard that right. Some people may think that is not possible. Think again. And I hope you don't experience it. It's harrowing for the victims. And it's also happened to men also. But it's more a female thing. How can you comprehend that type of incident? Who do you talk to? Try telling the cops or the doctor I've been raped by an entity you couldn't see, and you'll get whisked off to the mental ward. Can you tell your family or friends? All they'll do is refer you to a doctor, or worse, a psychologist, which again sends you on a path to psychotic drugs and or a mental facility. This shit is real and is more frequent than people imagine, but many are frightened to speak out because people think they're nuts or seeking attention. So kudos to the people who reached out to me over Simon Parks. Yes, that's Simon Parks, which I then outed, and he subsequently then blamed it on his father, Anu. Yes, that Anu, the Lord. So how is this event possible? Well, it's a bit like the Star Trek transporter. Beam me up, Scotty. For those who have gained certain abilities, you transfer your consciousness over to another region and can then interact accordingly. It's more commonly known as bilocation. You physically will remain in the same location, but part of you can be in another place, another world, or another universe, awake or asleep. Now, for those who act responsibly with it, which is an absolute must when using that, it's a useful tool. But if you come across a dark elf, engage with caution. Most are not for your benefit, despite what others may claim. I've seen more than enough evidence to support my claim. The first sign of malevolence out of them, take it out. Period. They're dangerous. On a lighter side of the Batman series, let's look at some of the other characters in the series. You'll realise why I did this piece when we get to the end. Robin, originally in the early days, was more popular than the main character Batman. But then he was killed off by the Joker in the storyline Death in the Family. All very Cain and Abel that. And then he turns up as the Red Hood in the story The Man Behind the Red Hood. The man later known as the Joker was a master criminal going by the Red Hood alias. In other words, it's a different name. Sound familiar? Should be. The Red Hood is an alias used by multiple fictional characters and a criminal organisation. The Red Hood then becomes the Joker after an accident. The Red Hood becomes the Red Shield, becomes the Rothschilds. The Joker in the series plots, and the jokes are on us. The Joker's now being the Rothschild. Penguin, of course, is a Jewish man in a business suit. Again, sound familiar? The Riddler, in essence, is the portal people, riddling people with all kinds of bullshit. And then you look at some of the lesser known characters in that show, the ones we always miss. King Tut, there's that Egyptian link again, was one of the characters. Egghead was another one, possibly referencing the Conehead people. No, not David Wilcock, but a much earlier date, think Nefertiti. Mr. Freeze perhaps symbolises our economy. Bookworm was another one, symbolises Google. Worm goes into the book and removes or changes the words. You're all starting to see that. And also the Mad Hatter was also in that. All very Alice in Wonderland and Project Looking Glass, that. There was another character known as the False Face, who was known as Malaki Throne. Molech Throne. Marduk, Solomon. Another Hebrew reference. And the False Face character was in 2 episodes, never showed his face, only the mask. Another character was Minerva, closely associated with the Greek gods, who did head massages to get into the brains of people. Bit like MK Ultra, that, isn't it? When you think about it. Oh, and that's in New York also, on Long Island. And then you have the glorious character name of Cassandra Spellcraft. You can't make this stuff up. Cassandra is a tip to one of the parents, Spellcraft and the Grimoire, which is grammar. And subsequently, grammar is a book of magic spells. Word magic spells. Cassandra Spellcraft. The boyfriend of Cassandra was called Kabbalah, another Egyptian Israelite reference. Nora Clavicle appeared for 1 episode with a plan to destroy Gotham for insurance money. Hello, Mr. Silverstein. you know, talk about The Simpsons. And then the classic of all, Azrael, who replaced Batman when he was injured. Azrael, Azazel and Ra. Azazel is another Hebrew referenced demon. He was sent as the scapegoat bearing the sins of the Jews during Yom Kippur. But it doesn't end there. Talia al-Ghul, Ghul being jinn, being demon, was the daughter of Ra al-Ghul in the series, and is the mother of Damien. Demon. Another character was Nimrod the Hunter, someone who Batman helped. Well, he would, wouldn't he? And last but not least, oh my, the Catwoman. That needs less explanation now, doesn't it? It's the Bastet, the symbol of Ra. And it's all there when you look. New York is the new Babylon. The cult of Ra site replacing Egypt. The former home of Joachim and Boaz, which was the Twin Towers until it was sacrificed by fire. And back came the Tower of Babel to replace it, replete with the black cube in the water monument in front of it. All observed by a Freemasonic statue, we are told is female, when on close inspection it's not, holding a torch of fire to light the altar. It's all there in the symbolism. And this is why New York is riddled with so-called Egyptian symbolism, from all the artefacts in the Metropolitan Museum. You've got the original Cleopatra's Needle in the middle of Central Park, of which I'll have more on in part 4 or part 5 of From Russia with Love. You've got museums all over New York riddled with Egyptian artefacts. In fact, the Sackler Gallery has half a Dendur in there. Why? Recently, a picture was posted on New York celebrating the end of World War I, and they built a monument out of German helmets. In which shape? The pyramid, of course. For those who remember the burning towers, will remember a particular picture that came up out of the smoke. The demon. That was telling you who had arrived. And the new base for the cult of Ra.